There's something about a Gothic Revival home that instantly grabs your attention. With its dramatic roofline, arched windows and intricate woodwork, it can seem like something out of a storybook, or maybe even a ghost story. Because while these homes are deeply romantic in one aspect, there's also something incredibly mysterious and even spooky about them. And it's no coincidence Hollywood keeps returning to this architectural style for Gothic thrillers and horror stories. But this home was not built for scares, and in the 19th century, it was part of a larger movement which saw a return to history, nature, and the spiritual richness of the medieval past. Today on Homes Explained, we're going to be doing a deep dive into Gothic Revival and consider the features which makes a home Gothic, the history of the architectural style, and those identifying features on the inside and outside which give the home its undisputable charm and character. Gothic Revival architecture arrived in the United States in the early 1800s, part of a broader cultural shift which favoured Romanticism and a return to nature. So in contrast to the earlier styles, which had the symmetry and classic proportions of the Georgian and Federal colonial, Gothic Revival offered something a lot more dramatic and romanticised, a style rooted in medieval tradition reinterpreted for the American landscape. Most Gothic Revival homes were built between the 1840s and the 1870s, especially in the Northeast and the Midwest. These regions had expanding rail networks, growing towns, and a population interested in a refined, European-inspired aesthetics. But the style took hold not only in large country estates, but also in smaller cottages, and these smaller wooden cottages were known as Carpenter Gothic. And in fact, it was those Carpenter Gothic homes that set the stage for a home style which we now call gingerbread homes. But it was the Gothic Revival architecture which was the beginning of America's love affair with elaborate trim and expressive design. But the Gothic Revival style didn't just influence residential architecture, because during this time, Gothic Revival became the dominant style for churches as well as colleges. It was considered that the pointed arches, the steep gables, and the ornate tracery inspired history, permanence, and spirituality. So for the religious institutions, it seemed that this style was a visual connection with centuries of Christianity, while for the colleges and university, it inspired academic gravitas and tradition, drawing a lot of inspiration from the famous Oxford and Cambridge universities in England. And to this day, many of the most iconic churches and campuses in America owe their look to the Gothic Revival movement. So let's take a look at the exterior features which make a home Gothic. And number one has to be the arches over the windows and doors. So these arches added a lot of height and drama, guiding the eye upwards. They often framed tall, narrow windows, usually arranged in either pairs or triplets, which echoed the spiritual architecture of medieval churches. So exterior feature number two would be the steeply pitched roof with cross gables. So Gothic Revival homes had very steep roof lines, which created a very dramatic silhouette. And cross gables, which is when multiple sections of the roof intersect at different angles, add to this complex sculptural appearance of the roof and help create the asymmetry which defines the style. Exterior item number three were the decorative verge boards, also called barge boards. Now, these were intricate wooden trims which would hang below the gable or the eaves. They were often scroll cut in a delicate pattern known as tracery, and it's for sure an element that gave Gothic Revival homes their lacy storybook character. Item number four were finials, cresting, and ornamental details. So finials were small spiked ornaments placed at the peaks of gables, and combined with slender spires, they added a sense of whimsy and fantasy to Gothic Revival homes. They were often paired with decorative cresting, which was a repeating row of ornate, spiky trim, which would run the whole line of the roof ridge. So these elements were borrowed from ecclesiastical architecture, which added a sense of theatrical flourish to the roofline, as well as a strong vertical emphasis. The fifth and final exterior feature of a Gothic Revival home is the asymmetry and irregular layout. So unlike the balanced, boxy architectural styles that went previously, particularly the colonial homes, Gothic Revival homes had a very uneven layout with projecting bays, off-centre towers and non-matching wings. So this asymmetry was a real defining feature, and it was actually the first American architectural style which celebrated this lack of symmetry, and it really gave the Gothic Revival homes a unique, one-of-a-kind, custom-built appearance. Step inside a Gothic Revival home and you'll find the same sense of drama continues. These interiors were meant to feel rich, moody, and also romantic, drawing on the same ideals of beauty, history, and emotional expression which shaped the exterior. So here are a few of the defining interior features you're likely to see. Feature number one was the vaulted or certainly very high ceilings. Gothic Revival homes had soaring ceilings which gave rooms a cathedral-like quality. In addition, there were often exposed wooden beams which just added to the sense of age and craftsmanship. The vertical emphasis was as important on the inside as it was on the outside. These ceilings were designed to inspire and create a sense of awe. Interior feature number two were the arched doorways and niches. So much like the pointed exterior arches above the doorways and windows, on the interior you saw arches above alcoves, doorways and built-in features. So these curves often softened transitions between rooms and gave even small spaces a sense of elegance and drama. Number three were the stained or leaded glass windows. And while not every Gothic Revival house had this, it was certainly a favourite feature for entryways, stairwells and select feature windows. So this colourful glass wasn't just decorative, it also filtered natural light and cast really beautiful patterns as the sun moved around the house throughout the day. This is another ecclesiastical feature reminiscent of a medieval church, which just reinforced the solemnity and drama of a Gothic Revival interior. Number four is all about carved wooden details. So mantels, staircase balustrades, built-in cabinetries often featured very intricate wooden carvings. So this reinforced the artistic personality as well as individuality of each individual home, as well as reinforcing the emphasis placed on hand craftsmanship and skilled workmanship within the homes. Darker tones such as oak and walnut were also used to enhance the moody and romantic tone. The fifth and final feature was the rich colour palette. So Gothic Revival homes embraced very deep, saturated tones such as burgundies, greens, navies, golds, and these strong colours were also paired with wallpapers such as damasks or florals. So the goal was to create a very cosy, layered environment that felt timeless as well as evocative of a medieval past. While the Gothic Revival eventually faded from mainstream popularity in the late 1800s, it certainly left a lasting impression. The style's embrace of asymmetry, ornamentation, and dramatic expression helped pave the way for the Victorian era's more eclectic styles, especially the Queen Anne, which borrowed heavily from the Gothic Revival's complexity and flair for drama. In addition, the Gothic Revival's emphasis on handcrafted detail and individual character laid the foundation for the arts and crafts movement, which rejected mass production and valued authenticity, something the Gothic Revival movement had championed decades earlier. So I hope by now you're an expert on Gothic Revival and you'll be able to appreciate all the neo-Gothic architecture around you when you spot it. If this has been useful, please like and subscribe as a new channel. It really helps me know that I should keep going with this, and catch one of my other videos. I'll see you next time.